Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I want to welcome you all to the Road to Healing, Funding and Advancing LGBTIQ Mental Health and Wellbeing. My name is Meg French, and I am the Executive Director of the Stephen Lewis Foundation, and it's my real pleasure to welcome you all to this virtual event. I am joining you today from Toronto, where I'm a settler on this land. It is the land of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. And I work and live and raise my family here and have a responsibility to respect and protect this land. And as an organization based in Canada, we here at the Stephen Lewis Foundation acknowledge that our presence is a direct outcome of the settler colonial state. And that state's policies of expulsion from the land and the cultural genocide continue to impact Indigenous communities today. In Canada, we held a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and the 94 calls to action that came out of that commission reaffirmed that the treaties with Indigenous peoples must be lawfully honored, and that as treaty peoples, we are responsible for honoring and upholding these agreements. We also acknowledge that oppressive and inequitable socioeconomic and political systems in Canada continue to perpetuate the legacy of racism, intergenerational trauma, and structural inequality, that this legacy is directly linked with the disproportionate impact of HIV on Indigenous communities within Canada. And so at the Stephen Lewis Foundation, we're committed to the principles of social justice, equality, and solidarity with our community partners who are based in sub-Saharan Africa and continue to face the effects of HIV and AIDS on the continent. And consistent with those values, we are committed to a journey of ongoing learning and reflection and relationship building in solidarity with Indigenous communities here in Canada. So thank you for joining us today for this important conversation about the place of mental health support in the lives and works of LGBTIQ communities. We will hear today from some of the SLF's partners based in Kenya and Uganda. Leaders of LGBTIQ organizations in these countries work and live in a context characterized by violent homophobia, legally entrenched discrimination, and political and social persecution. In the face of discrimination, violence, and persecution, LGBTIQ leaders and communities consistently face direct and vicarious trauma with little to no access to meaningful respite and support. Inclusive, quality mental health and well-being support for LGBTIQ leaders and community members is of critical need in Kenya and Uganda, and in many contexts around the world. The partners joining us today are part of the Right to Health and Healing project, which started 2 years ago and which responds to the immediate needs for inclusive, quality mental health and well-being support for LGBTIQ leaders and community members in Kenya and Uganda. The Stephen Lewis Foundation in Canada, and then 6 partners in Kenya and Uganda, so FARUG, IBU, SMUG, HAPA-Kenya, HOYMAS, and MAAYGO, jointly developed this project. It started in November 2021, and this round of funding will end at the end of December this year. The project's funded by Global Affairs Canada in partnership with Equitas and the Dignity Network, and by Doug Stollery, and we thank them for the support of this important work. We're thrilled to be joined from representatives of all 6 of these LGBTIQ organizations today. These community leaders are offering their expertise across 2 panels. So the first panel will share the context and learnings from the Right to Health and Healing project, and the second panel will explore the need for funding the road ahead for LGBTIQ mental health and well-being in communities around the world. Just on a logistics note, we are offering interpretation for this event in both English and French. So if you require simultaneous translation into the language of your choice, you can see at the bottom of your screen, there should be a globe icon. It should say interpretation underneath it. If you want to click on that, you can choose to ensure that you're hearing the discussion today either in English or French. Also, I invite you to share any questions you have for our speakers in the Q&A, which you'll also see at the bottom of your screen. What we will do is we'll go through our 2 panels today, and then we will have time at the end for questions. But please feel free if something comes up for you and you have a question, just to pop that in the Q&A so that we have it in place for our session at the end. And so now we will dive into our first panel. I'm really happy to introduce the speakers and moderators for this panel, and I invite everyone in the first panel to turn on their cameras so that we can see you. The first discussion will be moderated by Leah Odell-Benson, who is the Deputy Director of Impact and Learning at the Stephen Lewis Foundation, and she'll be speaking with Swabra Mumba, Gloria Mutiaba, and Kennedy Olango. Swabra is a counseling psychologist who has dedicated her career to advocating for the rights and well-being of marginalized communities, including sexual minority persons, with 21 years of experience in various counseling settings. She's currently the head of the psychological department at HIV and AIDS People Alliance Kenya, so HAPA-Kenya, where she provides counseling services. Gloria is joining us today from FARUG, where Gloria is the project manager. And Kennedy Olanga is a program manager at MAAYGO, where he has worked since 2014. His role is to design, manage, and implement activities focused on health justice, safety and security, social inclusion and human rights protection, and promotion amongst LGBTIQ+ communities in Western Kenya. He also coordinates Western Pride activities and is alumni of Equitas International Human Rights Training Program in 2023. So I thank you all for joining us today. Just one other thing before we kick off the panel, I'm really pleased to let you know that we are launching today the report Journey to Healing, a guide for LGBTIQ-led organizations implementing health programs. This community guide comprises of promising practices emerging from the Right to Health and Healing project, and it was designed to share practical knowledge on mental health skills building with LGBTIQ organizations. So we invite you to explore this guide after the webinar. We'll post a link in the Zoom chat where you can find that report. And now, Leah, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Meg, and welcome Swabra, Gloria, and Kennedy, and welcome to everybody who's joining from far and near. It's really fantastic to have this tremendous opportunity to get to connect with you, to get to hear from you about your experiences as LGBTIQ organizations implementing this mental health work. It's been quite a journey. It's been 2 years now, so a really good time to stop and reflect on some of the experiences that you've had doing this work, some of the firsthand accounts of the learnings that you've gleaned from doing this work over a number of years now, and some of the promising approaches you'd like to share with other organizations who would benefit from not having to start from scratch, to learning from your experiences. And so we really look forward to this sharing moment with you all. So I'm going to jump right in, because Gloria, as you know, context shapes the way that you develop your programs, the way that you implement your programs, and the context in Uganda has been extremely, extremely difficult over these last few years. And so, Gloria, if you could share a little bit about the context and circumstances in Uganda that led FARUG to wanting to provide mental health support to your community and your staff. Over to you, Gloria.
Thank you. I keep saying this about the project because when we were designing the project, we did not anticipate that things in Uganda would turn up as they are right now. As you're all aware, Uganda passed the Anti-Homosexuality Act, which is being actively implemented, and it's being also actively used to intimidate and sabotage and disorganize any kind of LGBT organizing and organizations in the country. Initially, when we were designing the project, we designed it from experiences of how we had been connecting and serving our membership. My organization, Freedom and Rome, is a membership-based organization. We work with LGBTQ women. So part of the things that inspired us to design the project were around what we had seen happen before. But then also the other inspiration was around the trauma that frontline workers and staff carry as they continue to provide services and products and serve the communities that they serve. So while as all our previous work, especially the one around mental health, often focused on our community members, this project, particularly for the first time, thought about the people that are at the front line. Because we spend a lot of time and energy and motivation trying to make sure everyone is all right. And in the process, we tend to lose ourselves. So it is very common for LGBT leaders, not only even in Uganda, but in countries where there's criminalization or a lot of homophobia, to burn out because of all the burdens and the trauma they carry from serving community members. So for us, it was unique that when we were designing this project, organizations had the liberty to co-create and to think in ways that they felt they wanted to. So as we were designing, we were like, how about we do this thing that is going to also think about the people that are always on the front line? And I feel like when it comes to our staff and frontline workers, the most relevant component of the work we did was the monthly wellness activities for staff. Because through these wellness activities, like staff would meet and just share a light moment. It could be anything like having a meal together, to going to the gym together, to going to the sauna together. And we were able to enjoy those things freely, have them energize, re-energize, and make us feel good. And for a moment, forget all the hustle and bustle of the work that we did until the bill passed. Because part of what the bill did is it made it very hard for people to organize, but also for communities to meet. At any particular time when a number of, let me say, LGBT activists are stayed in one place, it's something that brings attention, but it's also a safety issue for them. And being a staff that was working, not even was, we are still working, is working for an organization that's well known. Some of us were well known. So now, after the bill passed, we were evicted from our office premises. We were now working from home. And now these wellness activities began playing a totally new and unique role of being the only time a month we would look forward to physically meeting each other because we were working from home. So most of the time we ended up not being able to do all the other activities we were able to do, but we would often meet and have a meal together, meet and have a band together. So while as we were able to meet and catch up on work, we were also able to meet and catch up on each other. Like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What do you need? And also the fact that the leadership, the designing of the project for the leadership expanded outside just the staff to look at the volunteers, peer educators who are always on the ground, to look at the board. So many times boards are ignored. Their wellness is also paramount because providing strategic direction, especially to organizations like FARUG in countries where our work is criminalized, like, weighs heavy on them sometimes. So it's important for you to also take a moment for them to breathe and relax and take a step back from all the difficult work that they commit themselves to do. So yeah, that was very relevant. Another thing that happened that is still happening, and I think is not going to happen forevermore, amen, is something that the project introduced called the wellness journals. So this is like a series of monthly challenges that we put together. We co-create with community members, with staff, where people can, different wellness challenges that people can take on a daily. It could be small things like reminding someone to take water or step away from their laptop or eat a home-cooked meal or step out in nature, enjoy the grass, to big things like reading about wellness, standing up for someone at the workplace. But these challenges, we started them prioritizing only our members and did not even think of how far the challenges would go. Over a period of time, different organizations adopted the challenges. Interestingly, like some of the organizations that adopted our challenges aren't even LGBT organizations. So many organizations in the feminist movement where we are actively organizing and participating in have picked up the challenges. Even funders have. We have a funder called Womankind that picked up our challenge, and they've also adopted it at their workplace. So we started by making them like just monthly challenges, but because we saw how far-reaching it was, we now ended up making it into a yearly wellness calendar. So every year we produce these yearly wellness calendars, which has challenges every day of every month that we upload on our social media, and people can download. Use them, they can download and personalize them, they can download and change a few things about them. But we love how periodically and every day we are reminding people to take care of themselves. I love that as we are doing the challenges, we are always looking at, for instance, what month is it? But also prioritizing the fact that we make these challenges with women at the back of our minds. Because typically what is different from how, I don't know how things are over there, but what is different about how women in Africa appreciate wellness is the fact that we are raised inheriting generational traumas of our mothers, but also typically the burden of care is usually on women. So outside the the work, for instance, the burnout of work, the fact that I'm a woman, there are so many things that I have to deal with that break me down. I am an oldest girl at home. I have a burden of care at my family. I'm supposed to take care of my siblings. I'm supposed to take care of my mom. I have a child. I'm supposed to take. So outside only the work, there's so many things that end up weighing me down emotionally as a woman. So this wellness, being able to be designed around the fact that they're not only looking at me in my workspace, but also how I'm interacting with life in general, how I'm interacting with friends, how I'm interacting with family, goes a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. We really appreciate that response. And I think the toolkit really tried to emphasize, or the guide rather, really tried to emphasize that context makes a huge difference in how you develop your programs and services. And for FARUG, it really sounds like you put people first. You know, titles matter to only an extent, but the people in your organization are who matters most. And from knowing your context, you're able to adjust. Kennedy, thinking of you and your work in Kenya, how has the context in Kenya, if at all, affected the way that you have rolled out your programs, conceived of your programs, thought about, you know, the trajectory of the work?
Thank you so much. I just want to echo what my colleague have just said. I think we are also working in a similar context. If you look at what is happening right now in the country, but I'll say that our work started way back during the COVID season. I think during the COVID season, that was a wake-up call. That's when we realized there's a lot of challenges, because there was a lot of calls from community members, from staff, having a lot of issues. And as an organization, we felt there was a need actually to come up with a program and see how best to support some of the issues we are collecting from community, from staff, and other beneficiaries. And I think right now, in our context, I'll say that I think Kenya is also going the similar way Uganda is. If you look at right now, we have the Family Protection Bill that one of our members of parliament is really trying to introduce. You can see we have a lot of anti-LGBTI demonstrations from religious leaders and political leaders in the country. And right now, I'll say that there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of panic, especially among the LGBT frontliners and also the community as well. And we've seen a lot of situation where community members have been attacked. Community members have been attacked from with family members who are not very much affirming. Diocese have been closed down as a result of these demonstrations. It means that now people cannot access services freely. People cannot even dress freely as LGBTI persons, because you fear repercussions or any sort of attack. So I'll say that we are working in a similar situation like what is happening in Uganda right now. But we are trying as communities to do some little bit of advocacy here and there, and we hope that we are going to manage the situation. But we are also ready for anything that might happen, because this process might not work for us. It might work, it might not work for us, but we are also just trying how best we are going to navigate this process. But similar, we're in a similar situation like Uganda. Yeah.
Thanks, Kennedy. That's difficult to hear. It feels like there's a lot of obstacles standing in your way. And so I guess for Swabra, you know, thinking about all of those obstacles that you've had to overcome and you continue to overcome, you know, day in, day out to make these initiatives come to life, what are some examples of some really successful things and initiatives that you've done that have really worked and that you feel, you know, folks can stand behind in support of doing this mental health work?
Thank you very much. some of the initiatives that we felt were, were good, especially during COVID and also during the anti-LGBTQ uproar. First, we came up with check-in, that is a Zoom check-in. And with this Zoom check-in, community members are able to, meet up and talk and discuss about what they're going through. And we have a team of counselors who also also in the check-in to help and support those who are in need. We started doing counseling, online counseling services, offering online counseling services. And this also helped those people because you see, during the anti-LGBTIQ, which happened a few months ago, as Gloria has shared, and also as Kennedy has also shared, so many of our, majority of our beneficiaries experienced threats. They were traumatized, and even previously, because of also our laws and that are really discriminatory towards the LGBTQ persons, and also the religion, who in fact in Mombasa we are majority of our biggest religion in Mombasa is Islam, and with Muslim community it's very difficult. It's very difficult for our community members. So we thought for them to come out, it's a problem. Walking on the streets, it's a problem. Even if we say we would be going to their place to do counseling, it's also a problem because even us, the staff were also threatened. So for the sake of our own safety, we decided, why don't we come up with something that will bring us, all of us together, check in on each other, talk, laugh, discuss, share what we are going through, and also support each other through the whole thing. And then also we'll have a team of counselors who will also be able to note those people who are going through some mental issues and support them, yeah, individually. So check-in was one of the biggest things that we came up with. And this came through because we first, during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we were experiencing COVID-19 pandemic, we had several cases of mental health issues that were really so bad. And because of majority of our healthcare workers still have these values and they're not able to see our clients, it was difficult for our beneficiaries to really benefit from the healthcare center. So what we did was we came up with a needs assessment. We realized truly there is a very big need, and thank God SLF came through and we were able to get a bit of funding and we were able to do all these activities. So first we started with training of staff, let them understand about what is happening. And then training of the peers, educating them on mental health and identifying mental health issues so that they can also be able to identify their own symptoms and also identify symptoms of other peers in the field. And from there, we started getting referrals. And through these referrals, we were able to get support. And during the anti-LGBTQ, we came up with the check-in, and through the check-in we also had more counselors coming in to support, and from there, at least now we have counselors who are able to see clients virtually without them going to where the premises where they are. Yeah.
Thank you, Swabra.
Maybe Leah, something else that I'd really love to add is that
sure, Kennedy, we'd love for you to add.
If you look at the context right now, we are seeing a lot of suicide, especially among young LGBT person, and it's a trend that is very much worrying. And this is as a result of maybe bullying. There's a lot of bullying, online bullying. There's a lot of frustrations that coming from family members, abuse from family members. Then we are also seeing there's a lot of frustration from the courts. Remember, last year we had cases. I think actually this year we have cases, and courts have been postponing. The ruling. So there's a lot of frustrations, and as community, we feel we don't know whether the courts are part of this process and frustrating us. So this is really contributing to a lot of anxiety within our community members, and it's something that it's also worrying as we are now barring very young LGBT persons. So it's a concern. Right now we are working under very stressful conditions. Yeah.
Thank you, Kennedy. And maybe you could, support the next question in thinking through, based on some of your insights and from where you sit and all the work that you do in the day-to-day, because I think all of you are kind of really involved in the day-to-day implementation of these mental health programs and services. Hence all your knowledge about some of the real challenges that folks are experiencing in community. What advice would you give to other organizations who want to implement this kind of work in community? What comes to mind in terms of advice for you? And then I'll ask the same question to Swabra and Gloria, so you have some time to think on it.
I think one of the best way to do is, first of all, to have a human-centered approach. Gather survivors of mental health issues, gather people who have experienced mental health issues, and just explore or try to get feedback from them, like how would they need support, so that when you are designing your program, it's part of community input, it's part of community need. Then another thing is that you have to identify allies, especially either people from the Ministry of Health, the law enforcers, or even community leaders, because you need an environment that is friendly, and you need allies that can help you in implementing this work. And then also, you really need to, from our experience, I'll say that have a check-in with your staff. Have a check-in with your staff. How are they doing every morning? So that you're able to get to understand the feeling and their issues. Because as MAAYGO, what we came to realize that even our staff are also facing some sort of stigma and discrimination. Because people perceive that if you are working for an LGBT organization, you are either supporting or promoting, or you are part of it. So some of our staff have also been subjected to violence, to stigma, to discrimination. Some of them have been abused by their own families. So it is also good to just to find out how are they feeling about working for you as an organization, and see how best you bring interventions, even how the support on how to cushion what they are going through. I'll say that for MAAYGO, we did an assessment. Our first entry was doing an assessment, and also we looked at the reports that we had, especially around mental health issues that have been reported in the organization, like for the past 2 years before we started the program. And some of them were HIV related, but some of them were also sexual orientation and gender identity related. And we felt that there was a need for us to design a program that also encompass issues around mental health, and also encompass issues around HIV, encompass issues around and sexual orientation and gender identity. And best strategy was we look at every intervention, every population with their own issues as affected them. For people who are especially living with HIV, we have prioritized self-stigma as a key issue, and issues especially around depression and anxiety, and also issues around stigma, because most of them are also facing stigma, not only within the community, but also outside the community. And then for the general staff, we are looking at how are they coping with their issues around identity? How are they feeling about their identity? Are they comfortable to identify as LGBT? Do they still have issues about relationship? How are they coping with the situations of the awareness of their sexual orientation? Are they comfortable with the life they are living? So then we see how best do we develop a program to see how best to support people with those kind of conditions. When it comes to staff, we also look at the workload. How are they coping with the workload? How are they coping with issues coming as a result of working for our LGBT organizations? How are they coping with the issues around being identified as human rights for the LGBTI issues? So we are designing our program according to the needs and to see how they want to be supported. That is something that has really worked for us and has really given us the impact that we've seen, especially around our program. So I'll say that our approach is more of a community-centered approach. Just have a look, check in with them, get feedback, and see whether what you are designing, what you are planning to do will resonate with their needs. That is what has really worked for MAAYGO. Yeah.
Thank you, Kennedy. And Gloria, do you have anything that you want to add to that conversation or build from in relationship to FARUG? Anything you really want folks to know about doing this work?
First of all, it is also looking at wellness and self-care as a capacity development thing. Because just like it's important for you to develop staff capacities for them to be able to deliver, it's also important for you to make sure that you prioritize their wellness for them to be able to deliver. So as you're looking at your organization and auditing your growth, you also need to be looking at how good or how badly are you doing in regards to wellness and self-care for the people that work for the organization. The other thing would be around strategically planning for your wellness, because often when we come up with strategic plans and design our strategic plans, you hardly ever find organizations thinking about institutionalizing wellness as itself. Because sometimes it's not only just like the yoga and the dance, but also how are your systems and structures as an institution enabling people to be well at work? Are people getting leave? Are people getting maternity leave? Are people being paid fairly? Because so many things play into if people are well or unwell. So planning for it, budgeting for it, having policies that defend your stand on wellness and self-care for staff is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Swabra, we have about a minute or so left. So if you could just, that's okay. If you could just share with us, what you most want funders to know about the conditions that are needed to do this work on the ground. Just a brief, a brief 1 or 2 words from you to close off this amazing conversation.
So there is a lot that they really need to know. But first of all is when introducing a program like this, it means that we are tackling mental health issues. Majority of our beneficiaries or our community members, majority are from low socio-economical background. And affording mental health treatment is a problem. So one of the biggest challenges that we have faced in our organization is treatment for mental health issues, mental health illnesses. So I think that is one of the parts that they would at least think about and see how best to support, especially for cases of what do we call emergency cases. We have high rate of suicide attempts. We have high rate of psychosis. We have high rates of substance abuse that are really, really badly off. What do we do? As organizations, sometimes it becomes a very difficult thing. So I think that is one of the main things that they should think, and also add more funding in this, because we've started and there is more to come in this world of health. Yes.
Thank you, Swabra. Thank you, Swabra, and thank you to all of our panelists for your generosity in sharing. This is not the end of this conversation. We will, endeavor to have more conversations just like this with you. So thank you so much And I'm going to have to hand back over to Meg because I think we're on time. So much appreciation to everyone.
Yes, I just want to add my thanks for sharing the challenges that you're facing, which are absolutely horrendous, but for then sharing how you're working to support your communities as they face the mental health challenges that arise from the hate and the discrimination. And I just want to remind the audience that much of the work that you've done and the advice that you have and the learnings that you have are available to read further in the guide that has been shared in the Zoom chat as well. So there's lots of opportunity to learn more about the work that you're doing and the impact that it's been having. So thank you very much for being part of this first panel. Before we jump into our next panel, I'm really excited to also share a video that we've pulled together working with the 6 partners across the Right to Health and Healing Project, where you will be able to hear more about their work and what drives them in their work that they're doing. So I will ask that we launch that video right now. Thank you.
Currently, there's been a lot of anti-LGBTI motion that is geared towards killing or ending the work that HAPA-Kenya is doing and other CSOs like HAPA-Kenya.
Ever since we started the program, what we have all noticed, I think, because all of us are underactive, community knows where to go for support. Before, we didn't even know where to go for support.
If we don't integrate mental health into our service delivery, then we're doing nothing. We opened up a mental health hub and then a department to ensure that they deal with the other mental health challenges that come.
Mental health is not a one-day session. Mental health is not something that will stop tomorrow. It is a day-to-day.
So most of the staff were saying that every day they come to work, but they are not safe. There's kind of a lot of threats, a lot of violence. The anxiety and the depression is very real. People don't even know what's going to happen next.
And I will not talk about other community without talking about us. Yeah, it's
the activists, yes.
The activists. Yeah. For you to have, to support your membership, you need to start with your staff. Make sure they are in a proper state so that they are able to effectively serve your community.
We forget because when you get into the action, like when you start the work, it never stops. It never gets quiet. That's why these programs like this are important, because as we even deal with these challenges, you're like, okay, I need to also check in with myself.
And for us, you're always on your email. or 24 hours, you're on phone, you're on email.
So through Active, I think we have really done a lot, and we have really improved. Even you can see people now are chiming, people are talking, people are very free. We have the community advisory board, which is actually guiding us, because one of the things that we never realized in our community is like, you need to have people on the street or people out there who comes and give us the report.
And also the training of healthcare providers in different facilities, just to make sure that they also offer services on mental health issues, and also at the DICE, because MAAYGO staff didn't even understand about mental health. So through the program, we have tried to also train our own staff to understand mental health services.
Empower community and also the healthcare workers to make sure that now we have counselors now. We have counselors on call and we have counselors on the site.
The greatest impact that I've witnessed through the Active program is the normalization of mental health conversations. See, I've witnessed a great change, because right now we're even having support group sessions that community members are able to come and say, for us, we're a group of people who are affected by depression, and this is how we've overcome, this is how we're supporting each other.
We have tried to adopt the mental health policy at the county level, because we have a national outlook, but at the county it was not being implemented. Through Active program has managed us to engage with the different county departments on how best the mental health can be integrated.
People are benchmarking from actually our organizations on how we do it. Actually, Brand, how you do IB? How do you do SMUG? How do you, Actually, we need active.
We cannot just, be like, oh, we did a program for 3 years. Because people are going to come back and people know that we are providing those services, not only just continuing to invest in it, but investing in it a little bit much better to speak to the unique needs that communities have.
Like never before, there should be more funds.
Through these challenges, how then do we still stand out and protect our community? How do we get the support from our funders like Active, Stephen Levis, to make sure that we get petitioners? But again, what's next?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Every single homosexual in Uganda knows whatever will bring about LGBTIQ liberation, we do.
So we're going to save generations. We're going to save this community that has been deeply affected by mental health.
All right, thank you. On that note, we can see, just how important this work is. And so I'm really excited to introduce our second panel. And I invite the panelists to turn on their videos so everyone can see you and our moderator. And we will be moderated today by Doug Stollery, who's the president of the Stollery Charitable Foundation. And he will be speaking with Brant Luswata, John Mena, and Alan Waza. Brant is the executive director of Icebreakers Uganda that operates the first LGBT clinic in Uganda. Brant has been advocating for the rights of LGBTI groups in Uganda since 2009, first as a volunteer at the Hate No More campaign committee, which was hosted by Freedom in Rome Uganda. And from there, he moved to become an active volunteer at Icebreakers Uganda, where he has given a more permanent role as the clinic and resource center manager, a role he fulfilled for 6 years before being named the executive director of the organization. We're also joined by John, who is the acting program manager for HOYMAS in Kenya, and by Alan, who is a clinical psychologist who designs and implements behavior change interventions for key populations serving the LGBTIQ rights movement at Sexual Minorities Uganda, where they are the strategic initiatives manager. Alan supports projects that monitor the HIV response in over 400 health facilities, supported by PEPFAR for key enablers and barriers of HIV/TB services. They work on mental health responses for the LGBTIQ communities, overseeing therapy connections in Uganda's cultural context and applying theories. So thank you for joining us. This discussion is going to be looking at the road ahead in funding and advancing LGBTIQ mental health and well-being. And before I hand it over to Doug, I also want to let you know that we have a report out launching today that complements this conversation as well. And it's called Urgent, Feasible, Impactful, and Fundable, a case for LGBTIQ-led mental health initiatives. And it's a case for support to communicate the value of funding mental health and well-being programs for communities and organizations who are experiencing direct and vicarious trauma, with a focus on LGBTIQ organizations. So again, we invite you to read and share this call for support through the link that we'll post in the Zoom chat. And lastly, just a reminder that should you have any questions, please do share them in the Q&A. After this panel, we will be taking up some of the questions that you might have. So on that note, over to you, Doug.
Well, thank you, Meg, and good morning, everyone from Vancouver. So in the first part of our session, we've heard about the importance of this Right to Health and Healing project in supporting the LGBTIQ community in East Africa. We've heard about that particularly in the context of the recent anti-LGBTIQ legislation and in the context of the pandemic. To my mind, there are two key elements to the success of this project. The first is the expertise of the 6 community-based organizations in Kenya and Uganda that jointly developed this project with the Stephen Lewis Foundation that have implemented this project over the past 2 years. And the second is the funding for the project, particularly by Global Affairs Canada, along with Actif, Equitas, the Dignity Network Canada, and of course the Stephen Lewis Foundation. So over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to hear from representatives of 3 of these community-based organizations, as Meg indicated: Health Options for Young Men on HIV/AIDS STI, or HOYMAS, based in Nairobi, Icebreakers Uganda, or IBU, and Sexual Minorities Uganda, or SMUG. And they're going to talk about their work on this project, and they're going to provide their insights into some important issues around funding. So Alan, perhaps we can start with you. How would you describe the importance of the work that you and your colleagues at SMUG have done through this project? Alan, I think you need to turn your mic on.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Hi, Doug, and hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. First of all, I'm Alan Mwasa. I work with SMUG, and I would love to just first of all say that this is a very great platform for us to have this conversation, to continue expressing how important this work is. At Sexual Minorities Uganda, we deal with so many things, and one of our programs is the REACT program, where we react to human rights violations. And for the longest time that SMUG has been reacting to human rights abuses, the last 20 years, we realized that there were so many things that were missing, but one of the basic things that needed to be put in place is how to provide mental health aid to people that we are responding to, in terms of people that have been put in jail, people who have been plastered all over media, in newspapers. When people go through trauma of a raid in, let's say, a shelter, those things traumatize people so much. And it was important for us when we experienced so many arrests and shelter raids during COVID, where there was so many mass arrests, where they would arrest like 20, young people in a shelter, young people who are homeless. And the responders kept on telling us that, we have these young people, we've tried to give them a session or two, because at the time we didn't have like a concrete program to respond to mental health challenges. And we decided to be like, okay, so what do we need to do? Because we had always, sent someone to a clinician, but we would hear so much feedback about how it was not working for them. And when we decided, so, okay, what's not happening? Like, why are people going into therapy and it's not working for them? Then we realized that there were so many cultural issues in psychotherapy that were being missed because we didn't have a choice. We had the psychologists we had, but then we decided to bring it back to the community and learn, what if we designed a community kind of response? And when we started the response to provide the therapy and the numbers that came in, we realized, oh my God, like this is something that people actually need, and people have been, suffering in silence for a very long time. And the emergency cases don't end. Every single day we have so many emergency cases, and as those emergency cases come, they come with people who have been traumatized by family, by, by communities, people who have been beaten, and all those kinds of things. And they need to, first of all, be responded to be gotten out of danger, but also that trauma never goes away and it stays with people for a long time. We started to study why drug and alcohol abuse was really a challenge amongst community members. And most of the things we found in our, small studies and small understandings and talking to people and creating our own community healing sessions was the fact that there was a lack of community, there was a lack of togetherness, and we've tried to create that through this program. And when we started this program, we said we would never stop. We have to go on because it's very important for community to find healing with each other personally. And yeah, we keep going on, and it's very important because of that.
Thank you. That's particularly, trauma never goes away. John, can you share the importance of LGBTIQ community leadership in this work?
Yeah, thanks, Doug, and hi, everyone. So my name is John Maina, Acting Program Manager at HOYMAS. I think for one, I would just like by saying something that personally I've come to internalize, and I've seen a lot of people also say that. Recently, people have been saying healing doesn't happen at the individual level. It happens at the community. Like, we heal within our communities. So I think that's just something that can set a tone for what I'm going to say. I think for me, there are three key things. One is we already, as HOYMAS and other LGBTI organizations, we are already quite immersed in our context. HOYMAS has been working for 13 years, for instance. We have organizations that have been working for around 15 years. So they've really gotten to understand the population that they work with, whether queer men, everyone across the spectrum. So there's a level of trust, and I would say cultural understanding of our communities that we have, that maybe another implementer would have to start from zero, so to say, that they would have a very steep learning curve to understand all the dynamics that happen, say in queer relationships, queer organizing, just being a queer person, just being a queer individual. So we find that we have that head start. We already understand so much about the needs of the queer people that we serve. So I would say the other is the underrated value of lived experiences. I cannot overstate how much, how important it is to have persons with lived experiences within your program. And this doesn't just happen at the educator level at HOYMAS. So we have the educators who have lived experiences. We were both intentional about engaging them, but others, it was just a coincidence. And that really helps to, because they are the interface between the organization and the community. Also at the different levels of decision making. So we have HTS counselors who offer HID services, who have a lived experience. Again, that was very strategic because in the past we didn't have a mental health program, but we needed someone who understands, who has an understanding of mental health, whether at the individual level or through training. So lived experiences have really informed the work that we do, because someone will propose a solution, and then 2 or 3 people who've been to therapy or who access any mental health service will be like, oh, actually, that's not how it goes. This is what I've seen. This is what I've seen. Not that they override everything, but they're just giving their real life experiences about how they've seen maybe mental health work being implemented. Another thing I would want to mention on the understanding of our community. So probably something about coming out. If you start explaining to just another therapist why coming out has been so hard for you, sometimes that may not translate from what we've had. It may be maybe not even the weight that you carry it with. Maybe it's something you think about daily, but maybe they just overshadow it as something, just another concern. Also, like, our families are unique. Queer people have unique families. Some of us are in touch with our biological families, others have our own families that we found along the way, and we consider that our actual families. So again, if a therapist is trying to support you through your family, your network, it would be very ideal that they are also able to understand that that to you is what family, not your mother or your father who disowned you for your sexuality. So such nuances. The last thing is mostly representation. I believe, and at HOYMAS we believe, representation and visibility is very important. So as my colleagues were saying, the mental health conversation specifically in Kenya got a lot of support during COVID. So before that, psychoeducation or any form of service or mental health service, it was not something that was in the mainstream. So very few people understand that by going to therapy, it does not mean I am crazy, as you know, the layman says. It means maybe I have a struggle, I want to understand something within me more deeper. So I think having leaders, both at all levels, everyone at HOYMAS is a leader, so at all levels, whether the educator in their social media, the director in whatever platform, the program manager in whatever platform, they're able to openly relate with persons about their experiences on mental health. And if they don't have a lived experience, why they feel it's important that the community is able to access stigma-free and stigma-free therapy. So I think those three things hit home for me. Why it's important for communities to be at the forefront.
Thank you, John. That's very helpful. Now, Brant, what do you consider to be the important markers of success in your work? How are you measuring success of your project? Now, Brant, you're on mute as well. That's got it.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Called Brant. I work with Icebreakers Uganda. We operate the first ever LGBT clinic in Uganda. A few things I consider as change maker is one, having a mental health hub. Because actually years back we struggled with actually defining and unpacking what mental health was. But through Active, we are able to open up actually a mental health hub that actually has information, that is a free space to everyone to come and actually access mental health. Known to come to have services, but then also to chill. This is a very unique area whereby people come and actually discuss, unwind, rewind, rejuvenate, and get to know about mental health. We had challenges whereby a few years back, we didn't know what mental health looked like in Uganda, because one of the ex-employees of Icebreakers Uganda was going through mental health, but we didn't know what was really happening. But through opening up this hub, we've helped actually a lot of people to also identify themselves that are going through mental health challenges. And this hub is actually doesn't only help clients or staff members of Icebreakers Uganda, but also other organizations, LGBT-led organization, occupations-led organization in Uganda come and access the services of mental health. And actually, the other thing I wanted to talk about is actually having a clinical psychologist. Because, you know, as all of you know that actually clinical psychologists are expensive. And back then, only HRDs were able to access clinical psychologists. But then through Active, we've managed as IBU to have a residential clinical psychologist that deals specifically with mental health services. But then we have one. So what we did to ensure that actually no one misses any mental health services is one, we trained mental health champions to ensure that actually if our clinical psychologist is dealing with other challenges, these mental health champions are also helping up in our communities. In IB, we operate in 16 districts of Uganda, but then our one clinical psychologist cannot be everywhere. So what we did under Active, we trained our mental health champions to ensure that actually no one is left behind when it comes to mental health champions. And I also talk about the impact. How do we measure impacts? Because actually, I was looking through data before my session, and actually, I've noticed that we've reached out to 5,000 people with mental health services. Yeah, because actually, how do we measure impact? Because we have feedback mechanism that people reach out actually with feedbacks about our mental health services. We have actually tools that capture how many people have come to get these services, which is a very key component in our organizing. And the other thing, we've built strategic partnerships under mental health, whereby the last meeting we had, I think towards a month or so, with our breakfast meeting, we had to update people about what we've been doing under active or under a mental health challenge, under mental health project. We saw that actually we brought a lot of partners on board. These are some of them are government partners, of which if you start talking about sustainability, we need to start actually looking for wave of sustaining this program. When the active was starting, we didn't have partnerships under mental health, but then after doing the assessment, after the bench mapping, so we came up with our partners, and I'm happy to share that actually we have more than 10 partners when it comes to mental health. And then actually in the last meeting we had, the government were asking us, how do we help when it comes to mental health challenges? We've had actually, as these projects under active, many people are now starting to benchmark from Icebreakers or from other people that are partners with active, benchmarking on actually to define mental health, on actually to also come up with innovations on strategies on how to deal with mental health, which is also a change maker, because a few years back we didn't know where to go. People didn't know where to go to get the services, but it seems that people have started to benchmark from Icebreakers Uganda. That actually is also a change maker. And also I will not conclude without saying the bonding and rejuvenating of staff members. Because the years back we used to give service. You give a service, but who gives you a service as you as service giver? So what we've done through mental health is actually to get bonding through our retreats. We bond with, for example, our retreat is composed of staff members, we're composed of PA educators, we've also composed of a gatekeeper, for example, the security person. This is where we go and we spend more than 3 days trying to bond, trying to know the other side of Brant. If Brant is not on a laptop, if Brant is not in office working, what is the other side of Brant? And also that has also helped us to improve our performance. Because before we used to sit, you demand for these reports, because your donor wants, but then you don't know how your friend or how your junior staff slept. But through these retreats, we've managed to bond, and actually we've seen that the performance of people have really changed. As I conclude, I cannot actually conclude without talking about actually building a discrimination-free mental health centers, whereby we refer. As LGBT organization, we cannot be a one-stop shop. You might find that actually we have these mental health services, but someone needs to go somewhere to get other mental health services. So what we've done through Active is actually to build a discrimination-free referral centers, whereby if someone is referred from IB or from other organization, are able to go and get actually mental health services in a friendly manner. For now, I'll stay from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Okay, so we have just 2 or 3 minutes left, but we have a number of funders and potential funders who've joined us this morning. So I'd like to ask a question to all three of you, if each of you can respond in a minute or so. What would you like potential funders to know about how they can best support your work? Alan, can we start with you?
Okay, I'll try to wrap it and say that I think what I want potential funders and supporters of this work to know is that this work is very, very important to our communities, but also it needs to be approached from a point of like longer term kind of organizing it, because we can't just do, a one-off or, just doing the simple things. We need to get into the hard things, because our communities need this support. What we're going through in Uganda today, we just got out of court this evening, and we are stressed about, so many things. But as the news go into the media about how, court is doing, we are thinking about the young children who are in schoolyards facing a lot of stigma, who come to us to talk to them so that, they don't take their lives, who focus on, finding the activists who they can talk to because they know they can trust us. So we need to continue saving those lives. We need to invest more in looking for where they are, in making sure they find us, and in making sure that we are able to affirm them and give them the love that they need.
Thank you, Al. Brant.
Mine will be simple. The funders should actually support mental health innovations. Because if you want to end HIV by AIDS by 2030, we cannot actually leave mental health alone. These funders should start, or should actually should start funding mental health innovations, because every complication is related to mental health. So please, funders, start funding mental health innovations. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. And John, last word to you.
Yeah, I agree with my colleague. And I would also like to say, from what we've had, both in Uganda and Kenya, there were disruptions in programs from the anti-LGBTQ sentiments that have been going around. So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind as we're implementing more programs, specifically mental health programs. The anti-LGBT people are not sleeping there. That's still continuing. So there's potential for disruption. And I think what would make sense is planning flexibility within our program, something that SLS does really well. So that would be a recommendation.
Thank you. Well, I think our time is up. So thank you very much to Alan, John, and Brant for participating today. And perhaps more importantly, thanks to all three of you and to everybody else who is working on this important project for your remarkable work in dealing with these really challenging circumstances. So Meg, back to you.
There we go. Yes, thank you all very much. I really appreciate hearing the work that you've done and further learning about it and about the impact that it's having. And we actually have a few questions that have come through that I would love to pose to you all. So I'm wondering if all of our panelists from the first and the second panel, if you don't mind turning on your cameras. I will try to moderate us through some of these questions and make sure that we have the chance to hear from everyone, but we've got quite a few that have come in here. I guess maybe the first one I will start with is, how have the mental health initiatives strengthened the LGBTIQ human rights work that you're doing? And so is there someone who would like to start off with that question? Alan, you spoke a little bit to it, I think, in your last question. Did you want to build on any of that by chance?
Oh, yes, I would love to. In fact, I would say that how mental health initiatives have strengthened our human rights work is that first of all, the initiatives have made us, first of all, check in with ourselves and take care of ourselves as activists. But also they have made us to, take the breaks that we need, learn to take breaks that we need. Because as I said in the video that was shown, like the work never stops. So we never stop checking in with ourselves. And as the stress continues, you become something that you're not proud of. But also we get so much compassion exhaustion and vicarious trauma, where, we've seen all sorts of abuses and you can get to a point where you become numb. But these initiatives have helped us to have the heart for the people, but also for the work. And also expanding what human rights really means, because we live in a world that is very capitalist and ableist in so many ways. and we don't actually take mental health as one of the leading causes of disability. And because of that, activism is changing that narrative. Because, for example, if you look into disorders like bipolar disorder, which is like the 11th or 12th leading cause of disability, and many people with interfaced have issues like that. And these people are in what spaces, you know, and if you're an activist, you know that a lot of issues will happen, a lot of things will happen to you mentally, physically, and things like that. So these projects and these initiatives have enabled us to stay strong, but also we have become, we have created other avenues of how to speak about mental health from a perspective of cultural issues, and we are becoming capacity builders of how to provide mental health services to LGBTQ communities in, you know, sub-Saharan Africa. Because I went through the education system, I became a psychologist, you know, so many years ago. I've been studying psychology for the last 8 years, and I know what happens in those classes. And we now are strong enough to say that we can build capacity of psychologists to actually open their eyes to their implicit bias while they are treating members of the LGBTQ community. Because at the end of the day, if you don't understand the culture, if you learned gender dysphoria as an illness rather than something that was left in the DSM-5 to protect trans people, then it is something that we need to, you know, we have grown enough to bring activism around this particular aspect of the lives of LGBTQ persons.
Thank you. Did anyone want to add anything to that?
Yes, and also having places where to go to get mental health services. Yeah, it has also actually worked on our human rights. For example, I myself actually was facing a challenge of not talking to a therapist, and I was dying inside. But actually getting to know that actually I have a therapist to talk to, actually I tested it. I'm like, okay, let me go to speak to a therapist. And after speaking to a therapist, I really understood the meaning of mental health challenges. Years back, we lost activists because they did have where to go to seek these services. But having them here, they really have boosted us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, maybe I can add. For us, I thought awareness, mental health awareness is very important, and the importance is in self-awareness. Activists, most of it before we started all this, activists didn't know even the symptoms of mental health issues. They didn't know whether they are mentally unhealthy or they are healthy. But through the awareness, they're now aware. They can take care of themselves. They know where is their limit. If it's time for them to take a rest, you know, self-care, they know the importance of self-care. So this has really, really helped a lot. And it has really helped so many of the activists to also learn to take care of themselves, and even upcoming activists to know what to do in case if they're mentally challenged.
Thank you. You know, the other question that has come up in the I was thinking about in this context as well, and I don't know, maybe Kennedy or Gloria, you want to speak to this, or John, is the intersection between HIV prevention and treatment and care and support and mental health. And there was a mention briefly at one point about the intersection of those two, but maybe you can elaborate on how the HIV support and care services that you provide intersect with the mental health needs and support that you provide within your organization as well.
I seem to miss it. Can you say it one more time?
Yes, I'm looking at the intersection between the HIV support and prevention and treatment support that you provide in your organizations and the mental health programs, and how do the issues of how does mental health intersect with HIV in the work that you do?
Oh, I can say something about that. I'm going to mention, So for instance, the situation that's happening in the country right now around criminalization, you realize that the vulnerable communities within the LGBT community are the ones that are having the hardest. And LGBT persons living with HIV are part of the vulnerable communities within our community. So if, for instance, there's in a situation like now where there's criminalization, people are going to self-stigmatize. People are going to be afraid to go and access their medication. The anxiety and fear sometimes makes people fail to adhere or engage in other kinds of coping mechanism, which in one way or another also endangers their adherence. So consistently being able to provide this support helps many people to keep adhering, helps people to keep fighting, helps people to continue accessing medical care and living positively. But also during situations like this, the level of anxiety becomes so high. So sometimes people will opt to do things that numb them, and some of the things that numb them may put them in danger of contracting HIV. So let me say someone is homeless, they may end up becoming addicted to substances or alcohol and exposing themselves to being sexually violated. So for us to be able to provide the mental health support in one way or another is able to keep this person grounded and protect them from having made a decision that would probably endanger them or expose them to contracting HIV. Also, there's a high risk of violence, especially sexual violence during this time, and it's happening to different constituencies within the LGBT community. So there's a lot of rape of lesbians, there's a lot of rape of trans women. And so sometimes the only way you can help this person be able to cope with the effects of the violence that they have gone through is for you to be able to consistently provide the mental health support that they need, which will help them if they did not, for instance, contract HIV, somehow get back into a state where they're able to exist like they did before. And if they contracted HIV, sometimes they're angry. They don't even want to take the medication. So they need to be supported mentally for them to be able to accept that they're now positive, and for them to understand that they can live positively and why it's important for them to adhere. So yeah, somehow they interplay with each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add something, maybe?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really love this question. I think it's so interesting because, of course, HIV has been given a lot of priority in the past, maybe deservedly so. But so when the mental health work was coming, for us, there were a lot of parallels. So I guess the first one is how confidential mental health services are. So of course, we borrowed all our data confidentiality and data protection. We borrowed from what we do in HIV. So the trackers that keep clients, all client files, that's all stored somewhere no one can access. Another thing is how do you support someone who just maybe tested positive? They need a lot of understanding. You probably need to understand their dynamics, like their lifestyle dynamics pretty well. You have to have a plan for follow-up. If this person doesn't show up for a session, it's the same as the person who didn't show up for their medication refill. Probably something is up. So you don't just, now they don't want therapy anymore. You follow the plan you had probably came up with on how to do follow-up. We're also thinking, we were thinking on how, for a PLHIV, for a person living with HIV, they have already, they've gone through a lot of stigma in their life. There's a lot of self-doubt. And honestly, I would say for HOYMAS, this was the group that we really, really tried to not sell the idea, but really show why mental health services were important. A lot of them had that is through support groups. And even in our needs assessment, when we were doing this assessment, we were anticipating that so many people would be excited for individual counseling, but then because the community was kind of already used to group counseling through the PLHID support groups. They kind of knew what they can expect from that. So we thought that was interesting for us. And to be honest, there are people to date, they still prefer to stay in the support groups. They prefer that when those are happening than the individual counseling. It's a personal preference. We don't, if anyone wants individual counseling, then that's also on offer. So I can see some parallels on how confidential the services are, how they need a lot of care, while a lot of patient-centeredness. My lifestyle is not his lifestyle. I may have depression, he has depression, but our experiences of it are totally different. And I've come to really, really appreciate that in mental health. Another thing, just lastly, is the chronic condition. They are both, a number of mental health conditions are chronic. That means you have to take care of yourself for life. So what we are doing when we are getting someone into therapy, and maybe they get a diagnosis as you go, maybe they have major depressive disorder. We want to make you understand that yes, you can go into remission, and there are ways to take care of yourself, but just doing therapy for 5 months is not enough. Like, you can't go back to the same bad coping mechanisms that you had. There's a way you need to change your lifestyle, right? You need to improve your social circle, eat healthier, maybe work out. So yeah, there are a number of parallels, and we appreciate that we can keep borrowing from those.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. Alan, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I have something I wanted to say around the question on mental health initiatives. And we've been in court for a very long time this year. And I wanted to say that when the conversation around the bill was happening, the conversation was going to go away from criminalization to actually putting around conversion therapy and legalizing conversion therapy in Uganda. And one of the things that we did, because we had this program, is we wrote a letter to State House to inform State House about conversion therapy and what it is and how bad it is. And we also got the opportunity to educate our amicus in court about conversion therapy and its dangers, and for them to be able to build the case against conversion therapy. And that's how we didn't get clauses of conversion therapy put within the bill. So you see how important it is for us to be prepared, because we also had data on mental health support that we've been collecting through the clients that we've been seeing. We use that data to build that case against conversion therapy, because conversion therapy camps we are starting, conversion therapy happens in Uganda, but also it has remained underground because we've fought so much with statistics. We've brought experts in. We work with one of the major universities in Uganda to build that case for us. So I just wanted to add that these initiatives are important for our activism, for us to build cases to support our communities from an informed point of view about these issues. We've been seeing these issues happen in other developed countries, and they've been happening underground in our countries, and we were able to catch on quickly because we understood what those things are.
Thank you. I'm just conscious of time, and I was wondering, we've talked about HIV, we've talked about the human rights work as well, and there's a question here around engagement more broadly of the LGBTIQ communities that you work in to address the stress and the depression that comes from the stigma that is often people often face. It made me think, Brant, of some of the work that I know that you've done with the broader community, in your broader community, to engage and educate, not just about not just providing direct mental health services, but to build broader understanding about the importance of prioritizing your mental health, and that the communities and individuals need to understand that it's okay to take time for your mental health and to destigmatize work around mental health as well, in order to try to advance the work forward. And I just wondered, I think there's another related question here that where someone was asking for some of the positive examples of the outcome of the work that you've done. And because there's a lot of challenges and clearly the work still needs to continue, but I'm wondering if you can speak to a positive experience that you've had in that work with your community around improving well-being and mental health.
Thank you so much, Meg. One, the positive one actually I would take for now is actually the strategic partnership. Yeah, whereby we have also the Ministry of Health on board, Uganda's Commission on board regarding mental health towards LGBT persons. That's a positive change. Because as you know that regarding the legal environment, we needed actually partners that can support or can keep us work. So through mental health or through the health public approach, with the positive thing I can talk about is the strategic partners, whereby we see now partners, actually the government entities coming to Icebreakers Uganda to benchmark how they can actually elevate or strengthen mental health towards key population. That's a very, really positive thing I would talk about for now because of time.
Thank you so much. Did anybody else, I'm just conscious, we're coming to the end of our time. Did anybody have any last thoughts that they wanted to share before I wrap up? Anything you were really hoping to be able to say that you haven't had a chance to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to just share a little bit what we've been doing and what was a bit successful. Sorry, I was given that chance, but I think it slipped out of my mind. Support groups. There is a high rate of substance use in our community, and a rate of other mental illnesses. So we've been able to start different support groups. And in fact, we've also started another support group for young LGBTIQ because of coming out. Coming out is another big issue. So we thought it would be nice to bring them in, let them share about coming out, prepare them on how they're going to come out. And because of this, also, we've also thought of coming up with the staff, not staff, but family support group. Because, at the end of the day, if I have a child who's an LGBTIQ, how will I be able to know how to handle it? So yeah, that's another thing. So we do some small trainings to help them understand what L means, what the flag means, and all those small stuff that they really need to understand, and even how the religious speaks about the LGBTIQ person. So I thought I would share this and also help other organizations who are also planning to implement such kind of program to also think about these type of groups and also think about maybe this will help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm just conscious we have about a minute left. So I am going to just say a great big thank you to all of our speakers today. I know we could have continued this panel discussions for another hour or so. What I do think is wonderful is that we do have these two resources that you have all contributed to and helped in the writing, and really deciding what was important and what needed to be included in there. So please check out those two resources if you are an LGBTIQ organization who's looking to start or strengthen mental health programming in your work. Please have a look at that. Or if you are a funder and you're looking how best to support this work, please have a look at the funding document as well. So a really big thank you to Swabra, Gloria, Kennedy, Brant, John, and Alan for sharing your experiences, offering your knowledge and your wisdom Thank you to Leah and Doug for moderating with such skill and with such grace. And to Miriam and Tatiana for your interpretation today. We really appreciate being able to provide that to our audience. And thank you to everyone who has joined us here today. I hope you have learned a lot. I really appreciated the questions that you shared. It helped to enrich the discussion that we had as well. And please, if you have any questions about the Right to Health and Healing Project, or want to know anything further about the Stephen Lewis Foundation, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And don't forget to check out and share those reports. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely rest of your day.